Imagine waking up one morning and your home lab won't boot, your VMs are gone, all those hours of setup erased. Today, I'll show you how to design a complete Azure based backup system for your home lab with incremental backups, encryption, and offsite recovery, all for a low monthly cost. Welcome to IT on the Rocks, where we solve real world challenges one cloud at a time. Alright, here's the challenge. My home lab currently runs about 350 gigs of VM data, which might grow to about 2 terabytes. I need daily incremental and encrypted backups that I can restore fast if disaster strikes. So instead of expanding the local storage, I'm going offsite, and that too Azure Cloud. Alright, so we'll start with the solutioning part of this. On the left side, if you see, I have a Proxmox physical virtual machine, which basically is a bare metal machine on top of which I installed Proxmox. Proxmox is a virtualization solution. I can spend multiple VMs on top of this Proxmox. For now, for the sake of simplicity, I'm only showing one of the VMs. This VM is running a Linux operating system. Now, on top of this Linux, I have multiple Docker services that are running various self-hosted images. Each of these Docker services or images are mapped to a directory on this Linux operating system. All of the services are in one way or another using this file system to dump some of their media. This is what needs to be backed up. Now, Proxmox in itself has the capability of having snapshots of this VM. Those snapshots can be easily backed up to various other devices. So this is what we are going to do. My Proxmox is already configured to take backups and snapshots of this particular Proxmox VM. What we want to do is have a DR or a disaster recovery for those snapshots onto Azure. We've got two options for doing this. First option is using Azure Storage, and second option is specifically designed for this kind of scenarios where you want to have some of the disaster recovery or all of it from something on physical premise and then dump it to Azure. It's called Azure Backup. Let's explore each of this option in detail. For Azure Storage, what we will do for this particular option is your Proxmox image snapshots will be copied manually to an Azure Blob container and then organized within these blob containers. There are some specific things that need to be understood when using this particular option. Azure Storage is a very generic storage solution. So it's evident from its definition itself that if we want to optimize this particular storage solution for our needs, we need to make sure that we choose the right storage and right settings for it. For our requirements, one of the parameters is cost efficiency. So in order to store a lot of those backups on Azure Storage, if we could have something that could split your storage requirements into an archive versus something that could be required immediately. In Azure, This is called tiers. So Azure Storage comes with two various tiers. One is called hot storage, which, as the name suggests, is quick, is faster, but also costs more. Other one is a cool tier or a cool storage, which is usually preferred for backups or archival. So if we are choosing option one, this strategy should really divide your backups into two groups where you keep very recent backups in hot storage and the backups which might not be needed right away or needs to be archived into some sort of cool storage. This makes your solution cost efficient. At the same time, it also gives you features or it also gives you support to retrieve a very old backup and then restore that. So for this particular Azure storage solution, there is a manual activity of transferring your backed up VM snapshot into Azure storage. Since this particular Proxmox VM is running a Linux OS, what we can do is we can have a script that basically mounts this storage as a media onto this VM and then periodically copies the backup snapshots into this Azure storage. An addition or an enhancement to this could be we could write something which is known as a service in Linux, which runs periodically and executes the script as given here. Moving on to option 2, which is an out-of-the-box solution of Azure backups. As I previously stated, Azure Backups is out of the box solution for this kind of scenarios. But because it is out of the box, it is also a little bit costlier compared to our previous example where there were certain manual activities and certain manual configurations. Of course, something which is out of the box has easier to use interface and has more features built in. So for Azure backups, we have an incremental backup retention policy, which automatically takes care of purging the old backup files. And this can be easily scheduled. For option 2, we need to install an executable on your Proxmox VM, which is called MARS agent. Or if it's a Windows OS, Azure FileSync. Now we could also leverage a couple of other features within Azure to make sure that we are using the right practices. For connecting with the Azure storage or Azure backups, all of your secrets or your SAS should be stored within your Azure Key Vault. If we are using AZ copy, which is the case of Windows operating system, to connect to this Azure storage, we could also leverage the inbuilt Active Directory to control the access for the AZ copy. An additional component that will help you monitor all of this is Azure Application Insights. Application insights can be easily configured using either Azure Portal or Azure CLI. This gives you the ability to query logs or traces of Azure services like Azure Storage or Azure Backup. So for instance, if there was certain changes in the Azure storage, it would easily be available as one of the traces or logs in App Insights. For example, somebody logged into your Azure account and changed one of the containers, due to which your backup process is broken. This automatically comes up as your logs within your App Insights. App Insights is not just limited to all of those activities. Any activity which is at a trace level, at a log level, at an information level can easily be identified using application insights. In case of Azure backups, the same can be said for application insights. Application insights help you look at the Azure backup information, logs, traces, warnings, errors, any missed triggers, whatever. Having said all of this, the right way to do it is option 1 or option 2. It really depends. If I'm looking for a solution which is very much cost optimized, which is non-production centric, or which is more so like a home lab, I would always choose an option 1 over option 2. This lets me customize my setup and also makes me fine tune, which is an added advantage because of the nature of the home lab. If we want something which is really industrious or an enterprise grade solution, I would always prefer Azure Backups because it's out of the box, it's pointy clicky. So that's your full Azure solution for reliable encrypted home lab backups with incremental sync, fast restores, and disaster recovery built in. In the next episode, we'll discuss how to host a personal blog with high availability. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're building your own cloud powered home lab. This is Neil, you're watching IT on the Rocks. This is where ports, packets, and ports go light.